I think engagement is the magic word that's probably going to overkill in 2020. I'm seeing that.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
Hey, and this is Jack from emailsthatsell.com. Hey, join me by the water cooler, Jeremy, because I've got a couple cold email questions. Let's talk about it.
Awesome. Love that. I'm curious. What's about?
Okay, so here we are. Two things came to mind recently. So we've been starting to see that engagement is more and more and more important for deliverability for email and cold email today, right? Everyone agrees?
Yes.
Okay, we agree. Listeners, you are hearing this, and I sort of like to think this is new school cold email mentality. But there's another truth that I have to share. You've got something on your mind.
Yeah, I don't quite understand. Do you mean that I can't, keep sending 10,000 emails? I need to have engagement.
Exactly. You've got it. So in the early 2000s, yeah, you could volume your way to success. But today, no, you can't. It's like the SEO analogy I keep coming back to. It's like you can't win at traffic by putting a bunch of really bad articles together. It doesn't happen anymore. So there's one other truth that I think conflicts this new idea of how important engagement is for deliverability. And that is following up. Following up, I think, is going to change. And specifically my recommendations for the number of follow-ups you send, given that engagement is so important.
Okay, Jack, I want to hear it.
So if engagement is so important to do well with deliverability and cold email in general, we have been telling people to follow up with cold emails. However, what happens when you look at the stats of follow-up emails, Jeremy? Maybe you just tell me what's going on from the stats perspective.
Usually you just get around 40% of your reply will come from a follow-up.
From the first follow-up?
No, not from the first one, from following follow-ups.
But if we broke that down into individual follow-ups, typically the trend is fewer and fewer replies come in as the follow-ups increase, right?
Typical long tail, yes.
Okay, so we're picturing a graph that looks like a long tail starts high and goes lower and lower with time.
That's right.
So this matters to me because that long tail tells us that engagement drops more and more with each follow-up. Therefore, if you decide, hey, I'm going to send 10 follow-up messages because I can probably eke out a couple more leads, well, that may be well and good 6 months ago, but 6 months from now, that may be 10 extra emails that tell the spam filters that no one's engaging with you. And you have an even higher chance of being removed from the inbox and placed in spam. What do you think of that?
I love it. And I want to add a caveat to that one. Or actually, maybe a new recommendation. Maybe we can think about that. In the overall picture, you have to think about not only having a cold email inbox, you may actually use your company inbox.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's part of a normal kind of volume, like engagement volume with your existing customer, maybe you're an account manager. So you do have some sort of engagement. But the cool thing that, you make me realize is maybe it's fine to do 10 follow-ups as long as you got enough engagement in a previous one. So hear me out, Jack. Imagine, for example, you're starting a campaign, you got pretty much super low response rate on the first email, super low response rate on a follow-up.
Okay.
Super low response rate on the second follow-up. Maybe it's time to stop following up. But if you have a really good response rate on the first one, still a good one on the second one, an okay one on the third one, maybe we can keep on following up maybe until we reach a certain level. And then at some point we say yeah, exactly, some sort of thing like that. What do you think?
That's brilliant. So in other words, you're letting your engagement tell you when to stop following up.
That's right. Maybe I could, even drill that into QuickMail. If you don't reach a certain level of reply rate or engagement, I'm not going to put up the next follow-up.
Right. Or they get sent to this waiting area.
That's right.
I mean, that's really cool. So maybe the recommendation is going to change if you're really good at this stuff. Maybe if you're adding lots of personalization, if the list is scrubbed, if you're reaching out to the right audience, it could very well be that you could be doing great on the sixth touch.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas someone who's maybe newer to this, or they're just have been trying volume and they're slowly migrating over to this high quality outbound approach, they may have to stop after the second email, the first follow-up.
That's right. I'm going to put like a filter on really bad, user on QuickMail. And if they don't get enough, engagement, sorry, we can't carry on with your campaign. You're not getting enough engagement.
We're joking about this, but I almost don't think it's going to be funny in 2 years, because it's probably like MailChimp may be, hey, like we know what your subscribers do when they get your emails. And maybe before we'll leave it up to the, ESPs to decide where your message goes. But maybe in 2 years, they said, no, like you have to have a certain open rate or you can't play.
Yeah, that's very true.
Bounce rate could be the old school metric. That may not matter anymore.
That's a great point. And in fact, I'm thinking it's slightly different for the marketing world, because I do think they solved it with this double opt-in stuff and the report spam automatic, So I think they sort of like solved that, and we still haven't solved it into the sales world. But you're right. It could well be that, now you're sort of have needed to reach a certain level of engagement. But bear in mind that we can still increase the level of engagement without receiving any replies.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. Imagine in my signature, and there's some stuff like I recommend, like imagine my signature, I put a link to my YouTube, know more about my company kind of thing.
Right.
Now it becomes like a YouTube link. Gmail will transform that into an automatic click here to go to YouTube to see the video. So you click the YouTube video, that means you get engagement. Then suddenly you get more about the company. They may decide not to go for it or not to reply, but at least they engage with your email one way or another.
They're going to click for it.
That's right.
So you brought up a good point. Engagement is more than just replying. Engagement, if I understand right, is everything you could possibly do to an email. That's opening, that's responding, that's clicking, and I think it's also forwarding. So showing other IPs opening.
Oh, I like that.
Beyond that, I'm not so sure there's a whole lot that we can show the ESPs that we're doing something with an email.
What about the time maybe watching the email?
Okay. Look, they have all this stuff. And I'm sure if your job was head of spam at Gmail, you're going to have probably, a scary, way more stats. I mean, I'm thinking now, they have probably the ratio between engagements to users. So they may know that, this person rarely checks their email. We're not going to judge them so harshly if they get ignored. Maybe it's an old account, but maybe they have other accounts that flag everything as spam, or 90%. They're probably laughing if they heard what we were thinking, because, they're...
It'll be really funny that if you're working at Google, on the spam filter, just send an email, podcast@quickmail.io. We'll be more than happy to have you on a cast.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'll kidnap you and just get the algorithms out. We won't. We don't kidnap here on the show.
No, we don't.
But no, this is interesting, because it makes me think about subject lines slightly different. And I know that we've run stats that say you can't really optimize for open rates. But I'm thinking here that if just the mere fact of getting a prospect to open an email gives me a better chance of delivering to other prospects, I'm wondering, is there anything that gets changed by this new way of thinking engagement in terms of writing subject lines?
Small caveat, I think we did have a minor change when the name of the company was mentioned.
That's right.
And we are hitting employee type of people. I think it's a tricky one, because at the same time, you don't want to, fool people.
Right.
But I do have to say that on a personal level, and maybe I should check that as well in the data of QuickMail. I think that'd be a great data to check for, but it'd be nice to look at. But I do open, the email, I keep on sort of changing subject for each follow-up.
Okay.
Because then it's not a something, it's actually, a different subject. And I'm kind of fooled to some extent. Let me check what that is already. Oh yeah, that's this one. Cool, email swap file. But there's still this opening stage that happens.
So in other words, when the subject line changes, rather, if the subject line starts with you're very, very unlikely to open it, because why? You've seen the first one?
Yeah, it's not really unlikely, but it just reminds me that someone following up with me, and and that means if you didn't get my attention on the first email, I'm probably not going to do it. But, at the same time, it's not true for everyone. So
sure.
I need to double check the data, but that's definitely worth checking.
So I'm wondering here, if engagement matters, maybe we can sidestep and talk about engagement in the sales process beyond deliverability. There was a study that we were talking about before we pressed record. Maybe you can bring us up to speed on that.
Well, you brought up the study.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay.
I'm going to do the 3-second summary. It's basically you got more chances of closing a sale if there is more engagement. So it was like quantity and frequency. Is that right, Jack?
Oh, hold on. No, you got to spice it up. So,
yeah, well, I'm a very dry person. I'm an engineer. I go straight to the heart. No fluff, guys. You got
here's what happened. Jeremy's the no fluff. I'll drag this out as long as I can. But no, what happened was there was an AI that was built to analyze sales conversations.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And it was using machine learning, which is the same thing that the chess AI ended up beating the grandmaster. And now it can win statistically every time. But what's interesting with this grandmaster analogy is it didn't have a set of instructions that were written by programming chess masters. It said, if this scenario happens, do this. No, instead, the AI learns the best rules to follow in order to achieve this outcome, which is to win the chess game. Going back to the story with this AI analyzing sales conversations, there was no team of engineers that said, okay, we want you to analyze these metrics and tell us which one was most important. No, instead, they just had it analyze phone conversations. So it would dictate every word that was sent and analyze sentiment, how people felt throughout the conversation. Every dialogue, every back and forth was crunched by this machine. And the engineers just asked it, okay, so what's the best correlation to a prospect turning into a customer? And you know what it found? This is the dragging it out.
I'm sorry I spoiled it, but yeah.
No, but you're absolutely right. It found that the more frequent and the more conversations, the more back and forth happen, the more likely that the sale is actually going to happen. That's the number one best predictor on earth right now if a prospect is going to turn into a lead, right? So that's powerful.
It is. And, parallel to that, I was mentioning, Jack, that I read another study very recently as well. Same similar thing, same type of company. I think that's a sales CRM that was doing the data crunching. And they find out that the more the customer engage with you or initiate the conversation or initiate the follow-up, the better chances that they will convert into paying customer, which kind of makes sense, in retrospect.
It makes sense. Yeah, but I think sometimes we need a third party. Sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's an algorithm to show us this.
But this is a funny thing is we keep on training salespeople to go ahead, follow up. But if the prospect actually follow ups with the sales rep, then you're much more likely to get the sale. So,
okay. So to me, this screams out prioritizing prospects and leads using a little bit of a different system now. Let's say I'm selling Bitcoin and the people coming back to me are really engaged. Meanwhile, I have these other accounts who are sort of dragging along. This maybe tells me that if I want to close the most number of deals, I'm spending more of my time with the, let's call them engaged leads. Is that what you're picking up too, Jeremy?
I like that. I can't give you an answer for sure, but it does sound something definitely worth trying. I'm also wondering, can we actually predict people are going to be more engaged with the email before even sending an email? Maybe that's someone who is online, very present on a lot of things.
Right.
Or maybe a certain role in a company that will more easily reply. In fact, actually, this is part of a black hat kind of tactic now these days, which is contact support people or single owner type of website with sort of sales questions. So they will come back. So there is a sort of black market or
shady tactic.
Yeah, under the hood kind of, strategy about, contacting plenty of people who will engage with your email in terms of replying. Is that working? Is that not working? Yes, of course it is working, but to some extent, how much can actually alleviate your lack of engagement on other normal cold email campaigns? It's an interesting topic, and I don't think anyone has the real answer yet or at the moment.
But I think engagement is the magic word that's probably going to overkill in 2020. I'm seeing that.
All right, so let's switch gear a little bit then. How can we actually increase engagement? And engagement being, like we mentioned, someone opening your email, someone clicking on links, someone replying, someone forwarding, basically interacting with your email. So how can we actually increase that? So I mentioned getting a YouTube link for people to sort of like curiously, check out on you.
Very simple answer. Have you heard my golden rule for emailing?
Tell me. I may have forgotten it.
I wrote this when I was doing mostly traditional email marketing before I knew about QuickMail. I think I was still in diapers. But no, my golden rule for emailing is send emails that you would like to receive.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
So I think if the easy to listen to but hard to implement advice is just send emails that your prospect really wants to get. And so we're all nodding our heads. Yes, you're driving. You're saying, yeah, okay, great. Jack and Jeremy, maybe give me some concrete stuff that's going to help me dazzle my prospect when they see it, my message. And I think your video is along that line. If you're offering a piece of content that's going to pull back the curtain and show them who's behind this email, I think that's moving the right direction. Personalization comes to mind too.
Yeah, but personalization is great too. It's a bit like you adapt to the context. So in 2019, you needed good deliverability. In 2020, you probably will need amazing personalization. It's a bit like, you kind of adapt. If there is like massive sun, you take your sunglass. If there is a massive rain, then you take an umbrella.
Yeah.
You sort of like adapt to the landscape and the context here. So you're going to have to go with the thing. Like if you bring your, sunglasses when it's raining, you're going to get wet,
Yeah, that's true. And I've heard you say it's sort of like an arms race a little bit where
that's right.
You start adding lots of personalization, but so do your competitors. And next thing you know, you need to add a little bit more. You need to tailor everything. And I mean, we're going off on a little bit of a tangent here on this water cooler chat.
Yeah, that may be a different cast.
But let's go there. Do you see the death of the template coming anytime soon?
No, but I see the multi-channel taking a big step forwards in maybe we got a year still. But I think the people really having a big success at the moment because like everything, margins shrink. If you came at the very beginning of automated cold email, man, you had a good life.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's a Far West. I mean, for you, the listener, you're in the know. So that's good. But yeah, of course, you're not going to get like that 50% reply rate with a rubbish automated template with no personalization, we kind of used to have at the very beginning.
You used to.
Yeah. So that's normal. But at the same time, nothing goes to zero. And I think there's like, we still have people doing that purely cold call and still, manage to make a good business out of that. So why that? Because it's like the long tail. Start with a big fat margin and then it sort of like even out.
Right.
And I think now what really start working or what is actually pretty well working is that multi-channel stuff. Like, you send an SMS, you send, you do a cold call, you send a tweet, you send a Facebook message, you sort of like engage on a multi-channel level. But definitely, for another cast.
I want to circle back to what we started with, talking about the importance of engagement for not only deliverability, but for just success in general in this cold email space.
Yep.
I have a feeling this is here to stay, unlike a lot of things that we've talked about. I see engagement being the golden metric that these algorithms are going to hold on to because it's basically the user saying, yep, this sender's cool, and everybody else should go to spam. Do you think it's here to stay? Do you think engagement is going to be here in 10 years?
I don't know, honestly. I think it's easy to say right now this is the game. I think, and it's scary and I hate it, but I think the future is going to be more into, is this person, you're going to have a file on Jack, is Jack as a sender,
Not only as a sender, but as a shopper, a consumer, a voter.
Yeah. It's kind of suck to think like that, but it may be. So
I think China's already there.
Yeah, maybe I'm fooling myself. Maybe Google already know, who's sending from any account anyway.
You're probably right. Oh man, that'd be a bummer. But let's have fun before that happens, I guess, is the message. What else you got in terms of engagement?
Yeah, I was thinking of, let's talk tactics. So I'm going to come back and circle back to, to the YouTube one, which is a cheap one, but an easy one to actually do because people see a thumbnail, they want to click on it. And bonus point, this is an YouTube address. So even if, your email gets blacklisted, that's not your domain that gets blacklisted
right,
because of the link.
exactly.
So I think it's really a good stuff. The other thing you could do is obviously Signature is a great place for that, but you could use obviously a PS, hey, check out XYZ, if you want to know more, here's a link, because people kind of like to, and please, in 2020, I'm giving you a little bit of leeway, but please don't track links. No one wants to click on your link if, they go, somewhere else. So at least if you want to track clicks, just use a custom domain. So, it's just, at least he's using a sort of like similar name as your domain. But anyway, so a PS is a great place. The other thing that I think I like as well is the LinkedIn URL, because the same way, LinkedIn is probably whitelisted on a lot of spam filters, so they won't really impact your deliverability. And at the same time, people will engage, they want to check out like, who's this asshole who is spamming me, stuff like that.
Right.
But at least they'll engage with your stuff, right?
Okay, that's true.
I'm wondering if unsubscribe, especially when you got unsubscribe as a header, you'll get like that small link at the top that says unsubscribe that people can click on. I'm wondering if this actually counts as an engagement. It's hard to know. And I got like both feedback. So I think for me, the jury is still out. Like some agency doing it, we're talking like massive volume, obviously. Some agency doing it saying like they got less deliverability and the other one saying they got more deliverability. So I'm kind of thinking it highly depends on the actual domain you're using for the unsubscribe link.
Okay, it could be.
Are you using a custom domain that has a good sender reputation or a bad sender reputation? So I think it's kind of linked.
One other way that you can increase engagement has to do with something we've mentioned on this cast a couple times, and that's about your call to action. The tougher your call to action, the lower your response rate is going to be. So, Jeremy, if I make my call to action easier, is that kind of a gimme for better engagement?
It looks like it, for sure. And by the way, just for the listener who's just joining us on those latest episodes, Jack and I have built a massive CTA file that you can get in quickmail.io/goodies.
Yeah, check it out. There's over 100 calls to action there. So if you're listening,
that's right.
Maybe you don't even know about it. We've done a terrible job of promoting. By the way, download it and then leave us a review, will ya? Put a couple stars on the iTunes or whatever you're using to listen to this. Back to the show.
Yeah, and if you've been binge listening to all the episodes, and I know who you are, you know who you are, please, just give a review so other people can find us.
Yeah.
I don't want to beg for it, and I'm not begging for it. Don't take me wrongly, but just make the world a favor.
Yeah, if you liked it. If you don't like it, you can send me an email at nothanks@hotmail.com.
bounce@quickmail.com.
Yeah, even better. Okay, so lowering your call to action, sort of an easy way to boost engagement, personalization, links to LinkedIn, YouTube, signature stuff, subject lines maybe. Are we leaving anything out on the table?
Yeah, I'm thinking, and this is just thinking outside of the box.
And using multi-channel.
That's right. We've been recommending for a very long time not to send to, group emails like, support at, sales at, info at, whatever, because a lot of people are on those lists and you always have a grumpy person actually, clicking the unsubscribe or the spam button.
Yeah.
But at the same time, doesn't that mean that your emails get engaged, has more chances of being engaged?
It does, but I think it also has more chances of negative engagement, which is, maybe I just coined a new buzzword. But, if you flag spam, yeah, it's engagement, but it's the bad kind. I'm thinking the spam button is way heavier than a typical reply because, maybe they're analyzing the kinds of replies that come in and they're saying, oh, yeah, this is a negative response. That qualifies as a spam button to us.
I wouldn't be surprised. Now they're doing some analysis on the sort of theme of your email. So definitely they're probably doing a sort of analysis on the reply type.
Yep. I've got maybe another idea tactic-wise. You want more engagement, perhaps use this two-part campaign that we've mentioned a couple times where the first email you send is not completely related to sales, but it's meant just as an easy way to start a conversation. Maybe you're putting a white paper together and you say, hey, would you weigh in or send in a quote so I can include you? That's kind of hard to say no to, right? Especially if you're someone who's trying to get out there. I'm thinking like founders would gobble that up. Yeah, the tactic will get old, But maybe once you get that reply, you transition once you have a one-on-one conversation. What are your thoughts?
Definitely. Yeah, I love it. I may actually use that for SDR, maybe doing so if you're on SDR, just send me an email, jeremy@quickmail.io, and I'll be happy to reply. Cool. Yeah, obviously, we've been mentioning that a couple of times already, but you could always mix it with your existing customer. And it's great practice as well. You just basically reconnect with your existing customer, just asking them, what they think about the product, if you can make their life any easier, or just giving them some sort of extra nugget of information, something like that.
Look at this, Jeremy. I think you and I should really do this. We should make an inbox health score based on the engagement volume. So you've sent 100 emails last week and you got 10 replies. You have a 10% engagement score. If that falls below X, you're in trouble. I'm wondering, the inbox that you use for outbound should have, total emails sent, total engagements received, and it should not fall below a certain number.
What do you mean? Are you only talking about reply rate?
Potentially reply rate, but even if you just left it as simple as that, I'm thinking there is a threshold.
Oh, I see. Not necessarily going through QuickMail or any other automation tool, number of replies on this inbox so that...
Exactly.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, so that may be interesting because maybe now it doesn't matter, but I'm thinking the way this is heading, the inbox has not just a deliverability check score, domain score. It's what has this inbox done last week? Are people engaging with it?
Love it.
Does someone have to freak out about sending cold emails from it because there's just not enough coming back in? Is there any cold emails coming into this inbox? Are there any?
I do love it because at the end of the day, we're always trying to crack, that black box.
Right.
But it may be just, like you mentioned, maybe the engineer at Google is just laughing his ass off because at the end of the day, guys, this is just number of emails sent versus number of email received. It's just
it could very well be.
Where is it?
Yeah.
So that's a simple one. If you're using a cold email address and all you're doing is sending emails, maybe it's just your ratio is way off.
It could be. I mean, imagine probably most of the cold email world, not necessarily listeners, because you guys, you're listening, you're savvier than most. I imagine most cold emailers set up a separate domain because that's sort of the general best practice. They only use that inbox for cold emailing with the exception of a brief warm-up period for the first month. And then after that, they just rely solely on the emails for outbound to keep their engagement score healthy. And I think if you're average today, you're probably getting between 5 and 10% reply rates. And that's maybe not enough. I think after 3 months of that, or 2 months, you're going to have to deal with a lot of deliverability problems.
Hey guys, this water cooler took way longer than we thought originally, so we decided to split it into 2 parts. So if you're into better engagement and future of cold email and hyper-personalization, stay tuned, and I'll see you next week for the second part.
Hey, cold emailer.
Yeah, you.
If you got some value from this episode, give us a high five by sharing a 2-sentence review on iTunes.
Or Stitcher, or TuneIn, that works too.
It's a quick way to help other growth-minded folks like us find this podcast
so they can send awesome emails
and make everyone's inbox a better place. Thanks.